Hi, I'd like to show you this really spectacular feature in the Santa Catalina Mountains, north of Tucson, Arizona. This isn't a natural feature, it's man-made. I don't know why, but archaeologists and geologists have decided that man couldn't possibly do anything like this, so therefore it can't be made by man. I don't understand this idea that there's this wonder of nature that wind and rain and erosion can create something like this. When you look close, there's no way that all these rocks can get stacked up and balanced perfectly like this by nature. If it were an erosional feature, at least some of these pillars would have eroded away and fallen over, but every one is still perfectly upright. Unfortunately, I only have this one old faded photo of these rocks, but even this picture, when you adjust the colors and you sharpen it and you zoom in and start drawing in all the figures, shows you that this is a man-made feature. I started by outlining each one of these pillars. As I was going around and doing that, I noticed this one area that appeared to be circular. As I drew it in, it looked like a hinge, like at Stonehenge. As I started examining more of the pattern in the land here, I noticed a kind of a flow, that there might be a path that takes you through this temple. I then zoomed in closer and started outlining all the colors on the pillars and realized that, like all this prehistoric art, it's painted. And not only that, but these pillars have intricate carvings on the sides of them. You can see that every one of these is painted with different faces and figures. If you look close, there's even intricate, smaller drawings. You can see that each one of these stone pillars has been carved into the shape of human beings and then painted to look like heads and faces. If you zoom out, you can see how these stones combine to form even different kinds of statues and carvings. And then when you zoom back in, again, you see that every rock has been carved into a head. Nature can't put eyes, a nose, a mouth, and ears on every rock. This must be one magical place. And I wonder what kind of tombs there are deep in the side of this mountain. Those are some pretty amazing carvings. It's hard to believe that human beings can convince themselves that somehow the wonders of nature can create these things. Even the bushes and the trees follow patterns that create this art. So after looking at all the details, I zoomed back out and knew there must be other ways to view this feature as a piece of art. And sure enough, as I was looking at it, I started seeing this pattern that looks like the ascension of Jesus. If you look closely, there are characters around Jesus that are eating his flesh, gnawing on his arm, peeling pieces off his head. And in the lower below him are people that are reaching up with cups to get his blood. So this is a literal representation of communion. The early pagan Christians were known to have been cannibals, and that the early celebrations of communion that they had, they ate the flesh and drank the blood of their enemies. It was a common practice from their culture. I've seen several images of Christian iconography throughout the Southwest in my study of geoglyphs and rock art and other types of geo art. It's not uncommon. So the tribes of the Aztecs were known to have been from this area of the Chichimeca, and they probably came from all parts of the world, and among them were early Christians that were more pagan probably than Christian. Quickly, I want to run through and show you some other pictures I took in the Santa Catalina Mountains. Here's a feature showing a whole bunch of figures carved out of rocks. If you look close, you can see all these different human figures. There's no way nature creates these scenes and again puts eyes, noses, and mouths in all the rocks. Another stack of rocks showing what they were doing and how they were painting the sides of the rocks. Nature can't leave all these things balanced like this. Erosional processes aren't intelligent. They would have eroded the whole thing away and toppled them. See all kinds of different figures. This one is painted and has intricate carving on it, and you can see how a rock was used to prop it up. There's a shot through to a rock shelter on the other side, showing all the painting on the walls. And then on either side, you can see every rock is carved in very intricately into faces. And you can even flip it over, and it makes astonishing pictures. This way, it looks like that flat rock is a hat now. Another set of rocks, when you look at them, you can see a bulldog and some other characters. You can see how it's been chipped at and the patina has been removed, all carved by man. Same thing here, the whole top of this mountain. It should be covered in trees. The trees grow on the rocks there, but this has all been cleared. Forms a giant face and other faces and some turtles. Here's a large hill of rock. Forms one giant face facing up, and lots of other smaller characters. When you get closer and you outline, adjust the colors, you need to be able to see what it looked like about 1,000 years ago or more. And then you can see the pictures they were making out of the rock. And this one, if you look to the left, there's a man sitting, looks to be feeding an animal, and then the rest of the hills all kind of look like animals. I believe that it's possible that this was a prehistoric zoo, that these shelters that they carved out of the rock were used as cages for different animals. These tribes had zoos all over the world. These societies, the Romans, the Egyptians, all these empire builders, we know that they like to keep zoos. They also had totem animals, so they like to have their totem animal around. And we also know from the historic records that people had things called arks, big boats that you could carry animals around in. And that's probably what they used to get these animals everywhere around the world. I'd like to conclude again by reminding everyone that our scientists in our society, our geologists and our archaeologists are failing us by insisting that they know for sure that this is natural, or they know for sure the Americas were isolated for thousands of years, when those are just huge assumptions.